Hi, Tyler.
How we doing, Justin?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well.
Great. Looks like there's another person joining Springs Realty.
That's me.
Yes, Kelsey, she's sitting right over here.
Okay, perfect.
Hey,
And hello. Is anybody else going to be joining?
Um,
Oh, you both just got muted.
Steven might, but we can rock and roll and we'll see if he hops on.
Okay, sounds good. So, I saw in your email you just kind of wanted to review some things more pertaining to like processing disbursements and actually closing out transactions. So I can share my screen and we can walk through anything you want to. I am recording the call too, so I can send you the recording link afterwards, just so you can refer to it like later on in the future if needed.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. We could send it out to any transaction coordinators so they know how to do it.
Cool. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And then, were you still having issues with SkySlope? I know last time we spoke, I recommended that we have support look into it, but I'm not sure if you had a chance to do that, or if the issue was still going on or what.
Yep. So we're pretty confident on the SkySlope side. We met with them and talked with them.
Okay.
We are still seeing multiple of the same transaction appearing on Broker Sumo though.
Okay, gotcha. So let me go ahead and come into here. You're referring to sort of like here, this one is showing up as it did sync over, but there's this second entry for some reason. Is that what you're referring to?
Yep. So there's 3 total transactions there, but there's
Mhm.
like 10 things showing up.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's see. So this will in terms of like these two, I'm not entirely sure why those are duplicating. In terms of the log just kind of filling up over time, that will happen every time you sync it. So if you ever want to kind of clean it up and start from scratch essentially, or not from scratch, but just with a clean view of things, you can delete these logs. So let me go ahead and do that. It doesn't delete the actual transaction under view transactions. It'll just remove this log so you kind of have a clean slate when looking at it.
Gotcha. So what we're seeing there doesn't really matter, and we can clean it up if we want to.
Correct. Yeah. This is here to kind of help you know, like maybe for this one, the agent's name doesn't match, or maybe the agent isn't in here. Um, And then also on the support end, like if you have questions that you send to them regarding a specific transaction, they're able to view this information as well. But every time you delete the logs, it'll fill up again whenever you sync it. So you can end up with multiple entries of the same transaction each time, just kind of letting you know, like, okay, this piece of information is still missing, or maybe it did sync over and it's just kind of ensuring you that it's continuing to update anytime that you sync it. So
Gotcha.
let's go ahead and delete that so we can start from scratch. And I'll just sync from today. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, we'll see if anything comes through. We have been having a bit of delay between what's reflected from the SkySlope sync. So in terms of the logs filling up with information, the transactions coming through, it is being worked on, but at the moment it's not like instant. So due to that, I recommend that an admin sync it maybe first thing in the morning. Any admin is able to do this. So if you do pass this information along to any like TCs that will be using the platform as an admin, any of them will be able to do it. And I typically recommend doing at least once or twice a day, just to kind of keep things as up to date as possible in case maybe midway through the day an agent or one of the TCs goes ahead and updates something on the SkySlope end, it'll make sure to catch that on the CBO end. Yep. So in terms of closing, okay, it looks like Steven's here. So let me go ahead and let him in. And okay. Okay, he's here. So in terms of processing a transaction, I did see you have a couple closed in here already, but we can go ahead and start with sort of a fresh transaction just to serve as an example so I can walk through the process with you guys again. And also if you want to share that with your TCs, it will be helpful for them to see like that process from start to finish. We can go ahead and use just like a sample transaction. If you have one, we can duplicate the numbers that you had, or I can just make a fake one just to show you what the process itself looks like. Um, do you have a preference on that?
We have one that we did this morning, Justin. Is there any way to see if it's like in a queue or something?
Let's see here. So in terms of what's actually in the system, these are the only two that I'm seeing.
Yeah, Katie Court's the one we did this morning.
Okay, so yeah, the reason it's not showing is this this view transactions page, we only show what's currently open, so active or pending, just to not clutter this up as you close out more and more transactions. So we don't want like 100 pages where a bunch of them are closed and it's just kind of cluttered with stuff that you don't actually need to work on. So that's why that one in particular wasn't showing. Like I just did, you can change the filters if you need to view anything that maybe was canceled or did close at some point in the past. So you can view them either through that. So if you wanted to like view the details of Katie Court or make any changes to it, you can change the filters, or you can search by the address in the search bar. So whichever one is like kind of easier for you to do. Right now, it's pretty easy to just change the filters and find the one that you want. But as you accumulate transactions, it might be a bit easier to just search by the address. In addition to that, all of like the transaction details and financial information is in your reports. So you don't necessarily have to come here just to view those details. You can run your reports and just kind of pull everything from like a certain month or for a certain agent. Just depends on what exactly you're seeking. So in regards to the process of closing out a transaction, should I just go ahead and make like a test one just to show you?
Sure. Yeah, that'd be
Okay.
great.
Cool. So since you're using SkySlope, you won't really need to add transactions manually, but both for you and your TCs, knowing how to add them manually and what's required to do that is kind of helpful, not only in case you ever need to do it, but also it kind of highlights what's mandatory to be filled out in SkySlope versus what's optional. Because what's mandatory in here are the mandatory fields in SkySlope that need to be filled out. So we'll go ahead and start with that. So that's going to be under transactions and add transaction. And then the transaction type will come over from SkySlope. So I'll just select that. And then you have your sales price. You'll need to put in a close date and then the commission for the side that you're representing. You can put the commission for the other side if you want to, if you have that information, but the disbursement is created just for your end. So you don't necessarily have to, unless you want to keep track of that. Then the agent who is assigned in SkySlope will be assigned here as long as they exist within both platforms. But if an agent doesn't exist in Broker Sumo, but they exist in SkySlope, the SkySlope log will indicate like this agent doesn't exist. So from that point, we'll just go ahead and put you in here, Austin, or Tyler.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and put you in there with the commission plan, and then buyer and seller's info can be added as well. And at the top, we have the address, so we'll pop that in there. And I'll delete this afterwards, so it's not affecting any of your reports or anything. And then we'll just hit save. So once a transaction is created, whether it came from SkySlope or was added manually, this is what it's going to look like. So like I mentioned earlier, since it's active, it is displayed on this list. Once it hits 100%, that status will automatically switch to closed. So if we click into it, we have our transaction info page. This is the page we just filled out essentially. That way, if any changes occur in SkySlope, those will be updated here. So if the close date is pushed out, maybe the sales price changes, anything like that, it's going to go ahead and update here automatically whenever you sync it. But you can also make changes manually in here if you need to. At the bottom, we have the agent who is assigned and the commission plan. That can be changed if needed. And then you can add additional agents. So if there are agents who are maybe working together on a deal, you can add an additional agent, select who that may be, and how they're splitting it. So if it's like 50-50, 80-20, anything along those lines, that can be done. If they're added here, that means that their commission plan applies as well. And they also get sales credit for this. So some of the sales volume will be attributed to that agent. Um, so that would be the case if they're splitting it in that way. If it's just sort of a referral situation where maybe another agent is receiving a portion of the commission, but not getting sales credit, not applying their commission plan or anything like that, they can be added to the disbursement itself, which I'll go ahead and explain that in a bit more detail in just a moment.
Is that
When it
outside agents as well? Sorry.
Yeah, so you can do outside agents as well. It just depends which button you click for the given situation. So I'll explain both of those when we get to the disbursement. So when it comes to closing a transaction, there are a few steps, and these are the ones that we require. So this progress bar right here, it needs to get to 100% in order for it to be considered closed. You can create task lists here if there is anything you'd like to keep track of that doesn't apply to this list. That's kind of optional for you guys if you want to use it. They are based on the transaction type. So if you'd like a transaction checklist to be auto applied, if it's a listing or if it's a selling, so on and so forth, you can create those lists. That's going to be under settings, transaction checklist. And you can just kind of make any items that need to be taken care of as you go through closing it out. Again, that's optional. So I'm going to walk through some tabs at the top just to kind of clarify what they can be used for, and then we'll walk through the actual closing out process here. So we have your title company information. This should sync over from SkySlope, I believe. If it's not, uh, again, with any technical difficulties, whether it's you guys, the agents, or your TCs, they can all reach out to support and they can investigate any technical issues. They can also help with any general questions as well. So we're all kind of here to help you guys out. So title company info is here. This is just for keeping track of that contact information in case you ever need to refer to it in the future. Just knowing who you had worked with for a given transaction and having that easy to find per transaction. I'm going to skip these two tabs because they do pertain to some of the steps to close out the transaction. So we'll move over to activity log. This is going to indicate when different events happen on the transaction and under whose account that occurred in. So right now I'm in the main account, which is under the name Austin. But if it were another admin, a TC that was working on this, it will show their name. So you kind of know like, okay, this person has been working on this transaction and they'll be taking care of that. We have trust account and deposits. This is also just kind of for tracking purposes. Any money coming in or out that you need to be tracked can be entered here, and that can be shown on the disbursement. This isn't a mandatory section to use. It's just if it's applicable to you guys. So it's here for tracking, but if not, you can leave it blank. This documents area is for uploading any documents you would like to that pertain to the transaction in particular. This is also optional. When you're creating task checklists, you can indicate if a step is a document. And when you upload a document, you'll be able to check that off. We can't sync files from SkySlope, only the transaction data. So if there are documents in SkySlope that you would like in here, you would need to upload them with the Add Documents button. This last area is for notes. These notes can be viewed by admins and agents if they're an agent on the transaction. So you can use this to kind of communicate amongst yourselves, leave any notes if needed. And when you do add a note, you can email it out to different parties. So if we make one here, it'll indicate who wrote it, on what date, and if you would like to email it out of the system, you can click this envelope icon and you can send it to the agent, to title, or any other email that you enter in. So yeah, any questions so far? Okay, awesome. So the first step is going to be creating the disbursement. So that's going to be calculated based on the sales price that's entered, the commission rate, and then the commission plan that's applied. So just depending on which commission plan's applied, it will do the split automatically. So I'm going to walk through sort of the different areas of this disbursement. It's going to be the same. Excuse me. It's going to be the same for everybody in terms of what options are available. And that kind of ties into internal referrals, external referrals, any fees you charge, anything like that. So it's just a matter of putting things in the right place. So to kind of explain that in detail, we have 3 areas. There's pre-commission items, additional agent closing fees, and post-commission items. So pre-commission items are going to be for anything coming off the top, and then the split takes place between the agent and the brokerage, or anything coming from only the brokerage end. So in order to control that, you have this calculate agent's commission before or after this item. So if you put in a debit of $100, and we'll just put in test as the item name, we can hit save. So if it's going to be calculate agent's commission before this item is deducted, the agent will still receive the full commission based on their split. So there's 100%. So you're still receiving the full 30,000. But if you change it to after, you're then deducted.
So the first one would be if you were passing the cost on to the consumer, is that correct? Like you were doing like a administrative fee. And then the second one would be like if me, the agent, I'm paying like an admin fee or a transaction coordinator fee.
Yeah, so the key question that kind of applies to any of these different areas to add a fee is who is that money coming from and who should it be going to? So for these items, pre-commission items, they can be, if it's a debit, coming from the brokerage side or coming off the top. If it's going to be a credit, it could be coming from a third party and going to the brokerage, or coming from a third party and then the agent split is based off of that new total. So it kind of depends. And then right here, you can choose to include that item in the total due to the brokerage. So if you do have an external referral, are you receiving that total amount and then sending that money to that agent? Or are you not receiving that total amount, and title or whoever the entity is that is paying everything out, are they paying that external agent directly? So that's where that particular one comes into play. All of these different settings, when you change them, it's going to affect what the dollar amounts are. So I want to preface this with, if you ever have one, especially since like you are still new to the platform and then your TCs will be as well. If you ever have one that's a little bit complicated, especially as you're kind of learning it, you can give a breakdown to our support team. Just say like, this amount, this is the amount that should go to the brokerage, this is the amount that should go to the agent, any other third parties involved, and then any fees involved, they can advise on where to put different things and what settings to apply. So that's kind of, we're here to help kind of facilitate that learning process if you have trouble getting everything to balance out the way that it's supposed to be. So yeah, that's going to be for pre-commission items. You, if it's an internal referral, you can do pay additional agent right here, and all of your agents will be on this drop down. So this would just be if they're receiving a portion of the commission. If that is going to be coming from the agent's commission specifically, you can do pay additional agent from the main agent's commission. So that won't affect anything that's going to the brokerage. It's only going to affect the agent's commission in particular. The same goes for anything entered in post-commission items here. So like it says here, these fees will be taken from the agent's commission, only affect the agent commission. It does not affect the totals due to the brokerage at the bottom. So that would be if the agent is receiving anything, so a credit from a third party, or if they're paying anything out to a third party. So I've seen this used for like home warranties, if the agent pays that, or anything along those lines, sort of as an incentive for the buyer or the seller, or any other party involved. So all of these are kind of on a case by case basis. Obviously, there's a lot of variability when it comes to transactions in real estate. So there are different areas to add items. This last area for additional agent closing fees, these are for items that are coming from the agent's commission and going to the brokerage. So it's going to be deducted from this amount and go to the net amount due to the brokerage here. So that's sort of like the direct fees that are taken out of the agent going to the brokerage. So those are the three sort of areas you can edit different fees, add fees, additional agents, anything of that sort. And then at the very bottom, you end up with your totals. So everything that's happening up top is going to give you your results at the bottom, which again, we're here to help with if you have any sort of complicated ones, or just have some questions as you're going through the learning process. I saw that this populated automatically. This is where you can enter sort of any instructions for title or anybody else that you'll be sending the disbursement to. And if it auto-populated, that means this was entered under the account settings. So it just says yes, so I can remove that for you guys. So once a disbursement looks accurate, it's all good for you. You can click Create Disbursement. And that's going to be step one, essentially, of that progress bar. So we have the created disbursement here. You can edit it if anything changes, or if something was misentered, anything along those lines. You can also delete it to start from scratch. You can generate a PDF of this information, which is going to have all of this info as well as the information at the top. So if title company info is filled out, that's going to be displayed on the PDF along with the transaction info and your company info, which is being pulled from your account settings as well. You can email that PDF directly out of the system, or you can download it and email it like from your own email or what have you. And these check boxes on the left-hand side, this is where you can omit any line items from the PDF. So let's say you're sending it to title and they only need the total due to the brokerage. You can just mark that box and then send it. It's only going to include this line along with the information at the top. So it kind of helps to, if you're sending it to anybody where you do need to omit information, it's easy to do so. And also if you're sending it to anybody where they need to know just a particular amount, it's not confusing with all of these other items involved. So that's just kind of if you need to do it. It is going to be all checked by default, but you can uncheck anything that's needed. So coming back to transaction info, the next step is to go ahead and approve it. So once everything looks good, everything's completed, finalized, you can go ahead and check this approved box. You do have the ability to control who is able to approve disbursements. By default, any admin can, but you do have the ability to turn that ability off for certain admins if you'd like to. So once it's approved, it's going to go up to 50%. The next step is when the brokerage is paid. So you'll just check that box as well. And then agent paid is going to be controlled under the pay agent tab. So if we click on that one, you have the agent's commission. If any fees are directly taken from the agent's commission, those will also be listed. So any post-commission items or any additional closing fees, they'll be listed there just so you have a quick view of how we're getting to this total. And then you can mark as paid or paid at closing table. These two do not have a functional difference. They're more of used to categorize how an agent was paid. So mark as paid, people will use if they receive the full gross commission and then cut the check out to each party. Paid at closing table is typically used if they're paid through title or some other entity. So this shows on some reports, but again, it doesn't affect anything from a functional standpoint. So you can apply whatever definition you'd like to, as long as everybody's on the same page. So coming back to transaction info, once the agent is marked as paid, this box will be checked automatically. The progress bars will move up to 100%. and then the status right here is going to flip to closed. So that's all going to happen automatically. If you have QuickBooks connected, it will then sync to QuickBooks automatically, and it's going to sync over the commission information here, just depending on how you have it set up. At that point, like I mentioned earlier, the transaction will no longer be displayed here since it is closed, but you can either search by the address, change the filters, or run some reports to get any of that financial data back. Any questions on all of that?
I got a quick question on the payouts. So I know they kind of had a rule, once there's 10 closed in the system, you can switch to the ACH payouts. So how are agent payouts happening now, and how will that change in the future?
Sure. Yeah. So when it comes to marking your agent as paid, since you haven't hit that threshold, once you do, you go ahead and just reach out to support, and they submit a request form to upper management to go ahead and approve you guys. I'll reiterate all of that in a follow-up email to you guys. That way you can refer back to it once you do hit that 10 transactions. Once you are approved, you'll have a new tab on the left-hand side here that says ACH transfer. From within this account, you'll go ahead and set up whatever bank account you would like to use to pay agents out of. And then if an agent has their bank account connected, they'll have the same tab on their screen as well. There will be a third button right here that says pay through ACH. So you can click that and it will send this amount to them from the bank account that you set up to the bank account that they set up. You'll also have a new column on your agents list that says whether or not they've connected their bank account. So if it says, I think it says yes or no. If it says no, there's going to be a little envelope icon you can click on that will send the agent instructions on how to connect their bank account. If it says yes, that means they're good to go. And if they have a transaction that needs to be closed, you're able to pay them through ACH.
Awesome.
Yep. Yeah, so in terms of like closing transactions, that's about it. Typically the sort of detailed questions pop up as you go through closing out your transactions. So if you want to go over anything in more detail at any point, we can. But this is more of just kind of a general process. And then you also have support you can reach out to if you have sort of just a weird one or a quick question that you want to ask them. Aside from that, that's it for the transaction side of things. So.
I think that's all good. The only other thing we were confused about or wanted a little bit more clarification on right now was specifically how team leads can kind of manipulate their team plans, and if they do like team caps and stuff like that. But I think we might be able to figure that out if we tinker around with it a little bit.
Okay. We I'm not sure if it's been released yet, but I believe we are working on a way where you can kind of have like admins, but not office level admins, team level admins instead, where they can kind of view how their team is doing as opposed to only seeing their own information. So I can see where we are on that and let you know. But if you do want to kind of play around in here to find some different ways to do so, feel free. And then if you have questions about anything that you see, feel free to reach out to me or support, and we can take a look for you. Yeah, so once I get that information, I'll go ahead and send you that follow-up email. Do you want me to send it to all three of you, or just you, Tyler, and you want to pass it along?
That'd be great. You can send it to all of us.
Okay, and then let me see. Are you all in here? What emails can I send it to?
So you got Stephen Fitzwater.
Okay, so this one right here, and then you, Tyler.
Yep, and then we also, the info one is what Kelsey's running.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'll send it to all three of those. So let me make a note of that. Stephen, Tyler.
Oh, I did have one more. That's what it
Sure.
was. I had a note that said company name. I couldn't figure out what it meant. So as far as if Steven is adding a transaction for me into SkySlope and he's getting added as the agent name,
Mhm.
and that's coming over. And then also like Jennifer Momfer, she isn't going to be using herself. She's going to be like an S Corp or a C Corp for tax purposes. How do we make sure the names are correct?
Sure. Yeah. So if you go into any agent's profile, there is this area, where is it? Right here. For DBA/entity name. So if they do operate under like a business name or a LLC or anything like that, you can enter that in there and it will serve as their name essentially.
That's awesome. Too easy.
Yeah.
And then, so for like the one where Steven was populating as the agent, is that because we didn't have it set up correctly on SkySlope for the agent name? Like if you look in some of these transactions that we have over, instead of me as the agent, it has Steven, or is that okay? Is it kind of interchangeable if he has TC access?
That one, I would probably need to look into it a bit more. I would just need to know kind of the specifics of how it's entered in SkySlope versus how it should be looking. Obviously, changes can be made, but we want everything to kind of be streamlined, you know? So if you have instances like that when things start to come over from SkySlope, let me know and I can take a look. We're able to see, because obviously, like you have this log here, but us on our end, we have a back end view where we can see like the data itself that's coming through, not just what you're limited to seeing here. So I can take a look at that data and see how exactly it's entered and if it is coming through in some sort of different way from what you're expecting. I can look into that for you.
I think that's since we messed
Yep.
up on that originally. so
You're the
now
man,
we got it.
Justin. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
you.
Yeah, of course. So any other questions at the moment? Okay.
I'm good. Kelsey, Steven, you got anything?
Not in the least bit, I don't think.
All right. So let me go ahead and delete this transaction so it's not in your reports or anything. So let me delete that. And then let me also show you one quick thing under account settings. You have these disbursement instructions, disbursement notes. If there's anything you want to auto populate, people will often put instructions for title. So like a mailing address or anything like that that you want to clearly specify, you can type that in here. So yeah, there's that. In case there's anything, that way you don't need to like type it out every single time on your disbursements. It's just going to auto populate. That's optional to use. As you can see here, it says optional. But if there is anything you'd like to clarify in that area, feel free to type that in there. And then, yeah, if anything else pops up, your best resource is going to be support. But if there's anything that sort of we discussed in particular, like that team thing or the SkySlope syncing, feel free to reach out to me and I can take a look at things as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem. Hope you guys have a good time starting using the platform, and let me know if you have any issues. All right. Have a good day.
Thanks, Justin.
No problem. Bye.